My ex-wife cheated, tried to steal my father's fortune with her new husband, and thought I'd let them win, but I uncovered their scheme, exposed their lies in court, and built a legacy from the ashes. Jack Emerson's front door rattled under a fist that didn't belong in Vermont. He froze mid-sip, coffee mug hovering as the knock came again, sharp, demanding, like it already owned the place. Through the frosted glass, two shadows loomed. He set the mug down, gut twisting, and crossed the hardwood floor of his father's sprawling hillside mansion. The air felt heavier than it had 5 minutes ago. He swung the door open. Claire Emerson stood there, his ex-wife, all polished charm and calculated poise, her blonde hair catching the October light. Beside her, Nathan Reed, her new husband, smirked like he'd just won a bet. Jack's jaw tightened. He hadn't seen them in 2 years, not since Claire traded him for Nathan's slick promises and corporate sheen. "Jack," Claire said, voice honeyed but sharp, "we need to talk." "No, you need to leave." His words came out flat, final. He gripped the door, ready to shut it. Nathan chuckled, hands in his pockets, unfazed. "It's about your dad's estate, Jack. You'll want to hear this." Frank Emerson, Jack's father, had been dead 3 weeks. The grief still sat raw in Jack's chest, a bruise that flared at their nerve. Emerson Biotech, Frank's empire, was a fortune built on blood, sweat, and unrelenting principle. These two didn't get to touch it. Claire stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. "You don't get to shut me out, Jack. I was family. I have rights." "Rights?" Jack's voice rose, heat creeping up his neck. "You walked out. You don't get to waltz back now." Before Claire could fire back, a car door slammed behind them. Marion Brooks, Jack's attorney, strode up the gravel path, her briefcase swinging. 50, sharp-eyed and dressed like she'd already won, Marion had been Frank's confidant for decades. She didn't break stride. "Claire, Nathan," Marion said, her tone clipped. "You're trespassing. Jack, step inside." Jack didn't budge, his eyes locked on Claire's. She didn't flinch, but her smile tightened. Nathan's smirk faded as Marion planted herself between them, holding a folder thick with documents. "Frank's will is airtight," Marion said, voice like steel. "You've got no claim. Walk away now, or this gets ugly." Claire laughed, low and bitter. "Oh, Marion, you think you know everything." She leaned in, her perfume sharp. "We're not going anywhere." Jack's pulse hammered. He wanted to shove them off the porch, but Marion's hand grazed his arm, a warning. She tilted her head toward the house. Reluctantly, he stepped back, letting her close the door. The lock clicked, but it didn't feel like enough. Inside, Jack paced the living room, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the Vermont hills. Marion set her briefcase on the coffee table, snapping it open. "They're bluffing," she said, pulling out a stack of papers. "But they're desperate. That makes them dangerous." "Dangerous?" Jack stopped, frowning. "They're greedy, not mobsters." Marion's eyes met his, steady and unyielding. "Your father thought otherwise." The words landed like a punch. Jack sank onto the couch, his mind reeling back to Claire, her charm, her lies, the way she'd unraveled their marriage. He'd loved her once, fiercely, blindly. She'd left him for Nathan, a man who wore ambition like a second skin. And now they were here, circling like vultures. He thought of his father, Frank, warning him years ago over whiskey in the study. "She's not who you think, Jack." Jack had brushed it off, too stubborn, too smitten. Guilt gnawed at him now, sharp and relentless. Frank was gone, and Jack hadn't listened. "What did Dad know?" Jack asked, voice low. Marion hesitated, then slid a sealed envelope across the table. His name was scrawled on it in Frank's precise handwriting. "He left this for you," she said. "Read it when you're ready. But know this, Claire and Nathan aren't just after money. They've been planning this for years." Jack stared at the envelope, his father's ghost heavy in the room. Outside, gravel crunched, Claire and Nathan's car pulling away. It didn't feel like retreat. It felt like the calm before a storm. Jack didn't open the envelope that night. Instead, he poured a bourbon and sat in his father's study, the room untouched since Frank's death. Bookshelves lined the walls, stuffed with biotech journals and leather-brimmed classics. A photo of Jack and Frank fishing at Lake Champlain sat on the desk, both of them grinning, sun-browned, alive. Jack's throat tightened. He couldn't look at it long. He leaned back, the bourbon burning his tongue, and let his mind slip to Claire. They'd met 6 years ago at a charity gala, her laugh cutting through the room like music. She was radiant, quick-witted, the kind of woman who made you feel like the only one who mattered. Jack fell hard. They married a year later, despite Frank's quiet warnings. She's charming, sure, Frank had said, pouring coffee in this very study. But charm can hide a lot, son. Jack ignored him, chalking it up to Frank's paranoia. His father built Emerson Biotech from nothing, outsmarting rivals and dodging corporate sharks. Suspicion was in his blood. But Claire wasn't a shark. She was Jack's anchor, his escape from the weight of being Frank Emerson's son. Until she wasn't. 2 years into the marriage, cracks appeared. Claire grew restless, her warmth replaced by sharp edges. She started slipping away. Late nights, vague excuses. Jack caught her texting Nathan, a consultant she swore was just a friend. When she left, she didn't look back. Nathan was waiting, all smug confidence and tailored suits. Jack drained his glass, the memory bitter. He'd spent months blaming himself, picking apart every fight, every missed signal. Frank never said "I told you so," but his silence stung worse. Now, with Frank gone, Jack couldn't shake the guilt. He'd let his father down, ignored the truth, and now Claire was back, claws out. He stood, restless, and wandered to the window. The Vermont hills rolled out, golden under the moon. Frank loved this land, its quiet strength. Jack pressed his hand to the glass, steadying himself. Whatever Claire and Nathan wanted, he wouldn't let them tarnish what Frank built. Not without a fight. The envelope on the coffee table caught his eye again. He wasn't ready, not yet, but tomorrow he'd call Marion. Whatever Frank knew, Jack needed to know it too. Jack woke to the sound of rain pelting the mansion's windows, a gray dawn that matched his mood. He hadn't slept well. Claire's voice, Nathan's smirk, and that unopened envelope kept him tossing. Coffee in hand, he met Marion in the study, where she'd spread out files across Frank's mahogany desk like a war map. "Your father wasn't just careful," Marion said, sliding a document toward him. "He was a fortress." She tapped the page. Frank's will, dense with legalese. No contest clause, ironclad. Anyone who challenges it gets nothing. Claire and Nathan know it, but they're still trying. Jack scanned the text, his father's foresight sinking in. Why push if they can't win? Marion's eyes darkened. "Because they don't think you'll fight." She pulled another file labeled Reed Surveillance. "Frank hired Miles Keller, a PI, 2 years ago. Suspected Claire was after more than your marriage." Jack's stomach churned. He opened the file. Photos spilled out. Claire meeting a man in a parking lot, Nathan handing an envelope to a woman in a hospital scrub. Time cents, bank records, transcripts. One page detailed Claire bribing a nurse to access Frank's medical files. Another showed Nathan wiring money to an offshore account. "She was digging into Dad's health," Jack's voice cracked. "Why?" "Control," Marion said flatly. "Frank was healthy until the heart attack. They wanted leverage, maybe to push him out of biotech. Miles caught them tampering with financials too. Small moves, testing the waters." Jack leaned back, the room tilting. He'd known Claire was calculating, but this? It was surgical. He pictured Frank, alone, piecing this together while Jack was too busy licking his wounds to notice. The guilt hit again, heavier now. "There's more," Marion said, her tone softening. She handed him a USB drive. "Recordings. Claire trying to charm your father's financial planner, Nathan pressuring a board member. Frank kept everything." Jack gripped the drive, his knuckles white. He knew they'd come after me. Marion nodded. "He built walls to protect you, but you've got to hold the line." That afternoon, Jack sat alone in the study, rain still drumming outside. Marion had left him with a leather-bound journal, its cover worn from Frank's hands. Jack hesitated, then opened it. His father's sharp script filled the pages. Notes on biotech deals, sketches of lab equipment, but also something else. Frank's thoughts, raw and unguarded. October 12, 2022, one entry began. Claire's questions at dinner weren't innocent. Asked about the estate, trusts, just curious. Jack's blind to it. I can't lose him to her. Jack's chest tightened. He flipped ahead. March 3, 2023, met with Miles. Confirmed Claire's digging. Nathan's worse, arrogant, sloppy. They think I'm old, slipping. They're wrong. Page after page, Frank laid it out. His fears, his plans, his love for Jack. One entry gutted him. "Jack's hurting and I can't fix it. Claire broke him, but he's stronger than he knows. If I'm gone, he'll need to find that strength." Tucked in the back was a letter, sealed, addressed to Jack. He tore it open, hands unsteady. "Son," it read, "if you're reading this, I'm not there to tell you myself. You're my world, always were. Claire and Nathan will come for what's ours. They'll lie, twist, push. Don't let them. You've got everything you need. My work, my truth. Trust it. It'll protect you. I'm proud of you, Jack. Always. Jack's vision blurred. He pressed the letter to his chest, the weight of Frank's trust grounding him. Claire and Nathan weren't just scavengers. They'd been hunting for years, and Frank saw it coming. Jack stood, jaw set. He wasn't his father, not yet, but he'd fight like him. The journal stayed open on the desk as Jack called Marion. I'm ready, he said, whatever it takes. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and stale coffee, its high ceilings amplifying every cough and shuffle. Jack sat rigid beside Marion, his tie too tight, as Claire and Nathan took their seats across the aisle. Claire's emerald dress screamed confidence, her smile ablaze. Nathan, in a tailored gray suit, leaned back, one arm draped casually over the chair. They looked like they'd already won. The judge, a wiry woman with steel gray hair, peered over her glasses. Let's keep this civil, she said, her voice slicing through the tension. Jack's pulse thudded. Civil wasn't Claire's style. Claire's lawyer, a slick man named Hargrove, stood first. He painted Jack as a spoiled heir, hoarding Frank's fortune out of spite. My clients seek only what's fair, Hargrove said, gesturing to Claire and Nathan. They were family, integral to Emerson Biotech's legacy. Jack's refusal to share is pure greed. Jack's fists clenched under the table. Marion's hand brushed his, a signal to stay calm. She rose, her presence commanding. Frank Emerson's will is unambiguous, she said, holding up the document. A no-contest clause protects his wishes. The plaintiff's challenge is baseless and malicious. Hargrove smirked, but Marion didn't pause. She laid out Frank's evidence like a general deploying troops. Miles Keller's surveillance reports, bank records showing Nathan's offshore transfers, photos of Claire meeting shady contacts. A murmur rippled through the gallery. Jack watched Claire's face. Her smile held, but her eyes flickered. Then Marion played the recordings. Claire's voice, syrupy and coaxing, filled the room, bribing Frank's financial planner. Another clip caught Nathan threatening a biotech board member. The judge's pen stopped moving. Nathan shifted, his arm no longer relaxed. Claire's lips parted, just slightly. Hargrove objected, calling the evidence circumstantial, but Marion was relentless. She projected a blown-up image, a time-stamped email from Claire to a nurse, offering cash for Frank's medical records. The gallery gasped. Claire's composure cracked. She leaned forward, whispering furiously to Hargrove. Anything to add, Mrs. Reed? The judge asked, voice dry. Claire stood, her chair scraping. This is a setup, she snapped, her charm gone. Jack's twisting everything. Frank was sick, paranoid. We were protecting the company. Her voice climbed, shrill, as Nathan tried to pull her back. You can't do this to me. The courtroom froze. Jack's heart pounded, not with triumph, but with the raw shock of her unraveling. She'd played her part so well for so long. Now the mask was off. Marion didn't blink. The evidence speaks for itself, she said, and sat. The judge called a recess, but Jack barely noticed the break. His mind was stuck on Claire's outburst, the venom in her eyes. Marion guided him to a side room where they waited for the final blow. Back in session, Marion requested to play Frank's video will. The judge nodded, and a screen descended. Frank's face appeared, older, lined, but his eyes burned with clarity. Jack's throat closed. He hadn't seen his father like this since before the heart attack. If you're watching this, Frank's voice boomed, steady and sure. I'm gone, but I need you to hear me. He leaned forward, as if speaking only to Jack. Claire and Nathan Reed are not your family. They schemed, lied, tried to bleed biotech dry. I saw it. Miles saw it. The proof's with Marion. Frank paused, his gaze softening. Jack, you're my legacy. Not the money, not the company. You. You're stronger than you know. Don't let them break you. The video shifted to specifics. Dates, deals, Claire's bribes, Nathan's threats. Frank named names, laid out timelines, his meticulous mind leaving no gaps. I built biotech for progress, for good, he said. Protect it, and protect yourself. The screen went dark. Silence hung heavy. Jack wiped his eyes, feeling Frank's presence like a hand on his shoulder. Across the room, Claire stared at the floor, deflated. Nathan's face was stone, but his hands twitched. The judge didn't hesitate. The no-contest clause stands, she said. The plaintiff's claims are dismissed. Further, I'm referring to evidence of fraud and coercion to the district attorney. Claire's head snapped up, her mouth open, but no words came. Nathan stayed silent, his eyes darting to the exit. Bailiffs moved in and Jack watched, numb, as they were escorted out. Not victory, just truth, cold and final. Marion squeezed his arm. Your father would be proud. Jack nodded, but his mind was elsewhere, on Frank's words, on the fight that wasn't over yet. Claire and Nathan were done, but Jack wasn't, not by a long shot. Jack stood in his father's study, the silence louder than ever. Weeks had passed since the courtroom, but the victory felt hollow. Claire and Nathan were gone, facing charges, yet Frank's absence lingered like a shadow. The study's oak shelves, packed with his father's books and blueprints, seemed to watch him. Jack's fingers brushed the desk, landing on a small key he hadn't noticed before. It fit a locked drawer he'd never opened. Inside was a letter, Frank's handwriting unmistakable, and a deed tied with twine. Jack's breath caught. The letter was brief. Son, this land's for you to build something better. Make it mean something. I trust you. The deed described a neighboring plot, acres of untouched Vermont hillside, wild with possibility. Jack sat back, the weight of it settling in. Frank hadn't just protected him from Claire, he'd left him a purpose. The guilt Jack carried, ignoring his father's warnings, doubting his love easily. Frank believed in him, always had. Jack folded the letter, tucking it into his pocket. He knew what came next. He drove to the plot that afternoon, the air crisp with November's edge. The land stretched out, framed by pines and rolling green. Standing there, Jack saw it, not just dirt and grass, but a place for healing, for community, for something bigger than himself. A public garden, a legacy Frank would have loved. Jack called Lucy, his cousin, the next morning. She arrived at the mansion with coffee and a notebook, her energy infectious. Lucy had always been his confidant, the one who got Frank's quirks and Jack's stubborn streak. A garden? She said, grinning. You're dreaming big, cousin. A garden, Jack said, spreading a map of the plot across the kitchen table. A commons, space for everyone, education, art, peace. Dad would have wanted it. Lucy nodded, already sketching ideas. They spent weeks planning, pulling in architects, landscapers, and locals who caught the vision. The plot transformed. Paths wound through flower beds, a small amphitheater took shape for classes and concerts, benches dotted the grounds for quiet moments. They named it Emerson Commons, a nod to Frank's heart. Jack threw himself into the work, hammering stakes and hauling soil alongside volunteers. It felt right, grounding, like he was finally building instead of fighting. Lucy kept things moving, her laugh cutting through the chaos of construction. Frank's probably up there, she said one day, pointing at the sky, smirking at how dirty your hands are. Jack chuckled, wiping sweat from his brow. The community embraced the project. Kids planted saplings, retired offered stories for a history walk, a teacher planned outdoor science lessons. By spring, the commons were alive, its gates open to anyone who needed refuge or joy. One evening, Jack walked the finished paths alone, the air sweet with lilac. He stopped at the center, where a stone fountain bubbled quietly. This was Frank's gift. Not just land, but a chance to rebuild, to grow something good from pain. Jack's chest loosened, the grief softer now, woven with gratitude. Jack found the letter from Claire tucked in his mailbox on a quiet May morning, her handwriting jagged on the prison stationery. He stood in the kitchen, the envelope unopened, the weight of her name pulling him back to court, her outburst, her unraveling. He didn't want to read it, but something made him tear it open. Jack, it began. I know you hate me. I would too. I was wrong. About you, about Frank, about everything. I got lost in Nathan's plans, in wanting more than I deserved. I'm not asking forgiveness, just know I see it now. I'm sorry. The words were raw, stripped of her usual polish. Jack read it twice, searching for the lie but found none. He didn't feel anger, just a tired ache. Claire was a ghost from a life he'd outgrown. He set the letter down, leaving it unanswered. Forgiveness wasn't his to give. Not yet. But her regret was enough to close the door. He walked to the study, the morning light spilling across Frank's desk. Jack's eyes landed on the photo of them fishing, his father's grin wide and unguarded. For the first time in months, Jack smiled back. He was done carrying the past. Emerson Commons opened on a warm June afternoon, the air buzzing with voices and laughter. Hundreds gathered, locals, volunteers, kids chasing balloons across the grass. Paths wound through vibrant flower beds, and the fountain gleamed under the sun. Jack stood at the amphitheater, a simple podium before him, nerves flickering. Lucy gave him a nod from the crowd, her thumbs up steadying him. He stepped to the mic, looking out at the faces, people who'd helped build this, who'd trusted his vision. This place, he said, voice clear, is for my father, Frank Emerson. He taught me that truth matters, that love endures. He gave me everything I needed to make this real. Jack unveiled a plaque at the fountain's base, its words carved deep. Even in the darkest soil, something beautiful can bloom. The crowd clapped, some wiping tears. He spoke of Frank's foresight, his strength, his belief in second chances. This commons is for all of us, Jack finished. A place to grow, to heal, to start again. As applause faded, music started, a local band Lucy had booked. People spread out, exploring the gardens, kids splashing at the fountain's edge. Jack stepped back, letting the moment breathe. Lucy found him, slinging an arm around his shoulders. "You did good, Jack. Frank's proud wherever he is." At sunset, Jack walked the commons alone, the sky streaked orange and pink. The paths glowed softly, lined with lanterns. He stopped by the plaque, tracing its words with his finger. The grief was still there, but it was lighter, woven with peace. Frank's love had carried him here, to this place, this moment, this truth. Jack turned, heading down the path. The garden stretched out, alive and open, and for the first time in years he felt free. Jack woke to the scent of coffee and the distant hum of Vermont's summer. A year had passed since Emerson Commons opened, and the mansion felt less like a mausoleum now, more like a home. He'd kept Frank's study intact, but added his own touches. A sketch of the Commons fountain, a new chair by the window. The past still lived here, but it didn't choke him anymore. He drove to the Commons that morning, the hillside alive with color. The gardens had grown wilder, roses spilling over trellises, kids darting through the paths. Lucy was there, clipboard in hand, organizing a workshop for local teens. Something about soil science and art. She waved him over, her grin as bright as ever. "You're late," she teased, handing him a flyer. "We're planting a new herb garden today. Thought you'd want to get your hands dirty." Jack laughed, rolling up his sleeves. "You know me too well." He joined the group, kneeling beside a girl who couldn't have been older than 12, her focus intense as she patted soil around a basil sprout. "Like this?" she asked, glancing up. "Perfect," Jack said, showing her how to press the dirt without crushing the roots. Her smile was shy but proud, and Jack felt a warmth he hadn't known he'd needed. This place wasn't just Frank's legacy. It was theirs. All of them. Later, he and Lucy sat on a bench near the fountain, the plaque's words glinting in the sun. Even in the darkest soil, something beautiful can bloom. The Commons had become a heartbeat for the town. Yoga classes at dawn, concerts under the stars, a book club that argued loudly and laughed louder. Jack hadn't expected it to mean so much. Not just to him, but to everyone. "Got a letter from Marion," Lucy said, pulling him from his thoughts. "She's retiring, wants to volunteer here, maybe teach a legal clinic." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Marion, swapping courtrooms for gardening?" Her shoulders suddenly shrugged. "This place does that to people." He nodded, thinking of the volunteers who showed up unasked, the strangers who'd become friends. The Commons wasn't just land, it was a promise kept, a proof that good could outlast greed. Claire and Nathan were distant now, their names rarely spoken. Jack had heard Nathan took a plea deal, while Claire was still serving time. Her letter sat unanswered in a drawer, its apology acknowledged but not absolved. He didn't need to carry her anymore. That evening, Jack stayed late, helping stack chairs after a poetry reading. The amphitheater was quiet now, stars pricking the sky. He walked to the history walk, a path lined with stones etched with local stories, Frank's included. His stone read, "Frank Emerson, builder of futures." Jack traced the letters, his throat tight. "You did good, Dad," he whispered. A memory surfaced. Frank teaching him to fish at Lake Champlain, patient even when Jack's line tangled. "It's not about the catch," Frank had said. "It's about showing up." Jack hadn't understood then, but he did now. Showing up was building the Commons, planting basil with a kid, choosing truth over pain. It was living. He was about to leave when headlights swept the parking lot. A car pulled up, and a woman stepped out. Marion, her silver hair catching the moonlight. She carried a box, her stride purposeful despite the hour. "Couldn't wait till morning," Jack called, meeting her halfway. She smirked, setting the box down. "Found something in Frank's old files. Thought you'd want it now." Jack opened it, revealing a stack of notebooks. Frank's early biotech designs, scribbled with dreams of cures and breakthroughs. Tucked inside was a photo. Jack, maybe 10, holding a model rocket, Frank beaming beside him. On the back, in Frank's script, "For the day you soar." Jack's eyes stung. He looked at Marion, who didn't bother hiding her own tears. "He never stopped planning for you," she said. They stood there, the commons stretching around them, alive with crickets and possibility. Jack tucked the photo in his pocket, the notebooks under his arm. He'd read them later, let Frank's dreams spark his own. For now, he was here, rooted in this place he'd built, ready for whatever came next. As Marion drove off, Jack took one last walk through the gardens. The fountain bubbled softly, the air sweet with lavender. He didn't need to look back. Frank was with him, in the soil, the stars, the truth that kept blooming. Jack smiled, his steps light, the horizon wide open. Jack woke to the familiar hum of Vermont's summer, the mansion now a blend of Frank's legacy and his own evolving life. It was early August, 2 years since Emerson Commons opened, and the air carried the scent of blooming lavender from the gardens below the hill. He stood at the study's window, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise paint the commons' paths gold. The place had grown beyond his dreams, a living heartbeat for the town, drawing people from across the state. But something stirred in him today, a restlessness he couldn't name. Downstairs, Lucy was already in the kitchen, her laptop open, a spreadsheet glowing on the screen. She'd taken on managing the Commons programs, her knack for organization turning chaos into harmony. "Morning, dreamer," she said, not looking up. "We've got a problem." Jack raised an eyebrow, sliding into a chair. "What now? Squirrels stealing basil again?" "Worse." She spun the laptop toward him. "Funding. The state grant we got for the youth programs runs out in 3 months. We need a new plan, or we're cutting classes." Jack's stomach tightened. The Commons thrived on donations and small grants, but scaling up had stretched them thin. Art workshops, science camps, the history walk, they'd poured everything into making it free for everyone. Losing that would gut what they'd built. "Any ideas?" he asked, scanning the numbers. They weren't dire yet, but the gap was real. Lucy leaned back, chewing her lip. "A fundraiser maybe, something big, pull in the whole region. But it's gotta be more than a bake sale. People need to see what this place means." Jack nodded, his mind already turning. Frank had taught him to think big but stay grounded. "Let's make it a festival," he said. "Music, food, tours of the Commons. Show them what they're saving." Lucy's eyes lit up. "Emerson Fest, I like it, but we'll need help, and fast." They spent the morning brainstorming, sketching a plan on napkins when the paper ran out. By noon, they'd roped in Marion, who'd traded her retirement for volunteering at the Commons, and a handful of locals who'd become family. Sarah, the teacher who ran the science camps, Tomas, the landscaper whose designs made the gardens sing, and Ellie, a teen who'd gone from shy volunteer to unofficial ambassador for the youth programs. The team gathered at the Commons amphitheater that evening, the air cooling as fireflies blinked to life. Jack stood at the center, a makeshift map of the grounds spread on a picnic table. "We've got 6 weeks," he said. "A festival to fund the next year. It's not just about money, it's about proving the Commons belongs to everyone." Sarah raised a hand. "I can get my students to pitch ideas. They're creative. They'll want to own this." Tomas grinned. "I'll build a stage, something permanent. Been wanting to anyway." Ellie, barely 16, spoke up, her voice steady. "Let's do a showcase. Kids showing their projects from the camps. People need to see what they're paying for." Jack felt a spark of pride. This was what Frank had meant, building something bigger than yourself. "Perfect," he said. "Marion, can you handle permits and sponsors?" Marion smirked, her legal instincts sharp as ever. "Already on it. I know a few businesses who owe me favors." They scattered to their tasks, the Commons buzzing with purpose. Jack stayed late, walking the paths alone, the fountain's soft gurgle grounding him. He thought of Frank's letter, tucked in his desk. Make it mean something. The festival could do that. Keep the Commons alive, give it roots deeper than any grant. But the restlessness lingered, like a question he hadn't answered. Over the next weeks, the Commons transformed. Tomas's crew hammered together a cedar stage, its lines blending with the hills. Sarah's students painted banners, their designs bursting with color, rockets, flowers, equations. Lucy booked bands, food trucks, and a storyteller who'd weave Frank's legacy into the night. Jack worked alongside them, hauling lumber, stringing lights, his hands calloused but his heart full. Ellie became his shadow, her energy infectious. She'd grown up in a rough part of town, her mom working double shifts, but the Commons gave her a place to shine. One afternoon, as they set up tables, she asked, "Jack, how'd you know this would work? The Commons, I mean. Weren't you scared it'd fail?" He paused, a folding chair in his hands. "I was terrified," he admitted. "Still am sometimes. But my dad, he left me a map even when I didn't see it, kept me moving forward." Ellie nodded like she got it. My mom says fear's just a sign you're doing something real. Jack smiled. Your mom's smart. As the festival neared, word spread. Flyers dotted every shop in town, and ex-posts from volunteers went viral, racking up thousands of likes. A local news crew showed up, filming kids planting herbs and interviewing Lucy, who spoke with a fire that made Jack proud. This isn't just a garden, she told the camera. It's where people find each other. But not everyone was sold. A week before the festival, Jack got a call from Marion, her voice tight. We've got trouble, she said. Councilman Holt sniffing around, claims the Commons is a drain on town resources, wants a review of our land use. Jack's jaw clenched. Holt was a developer with a grudge. Frank had blocked his condos years ago, and Jack's success with the Commons stung his ego. He's got no case, Jack said. The deed's clean. Maybe, Marion replied, but he's loud, could scare off sponsors. Jack hung up, pacing the study. Holt's noise wasn't new. Small-town politics loved a villain. But the timing cut deep. He pulled Frank's old biotech notebooks from the shelf, flipping through sketches of labs and formulas. Frank faced worse than Holt. Corporate sharks, betrayals, and never flinched. Jack wouldn't either. He called a meeting at the Commons the next day. The core team huddled under the amphitheater's new roof as rain pattered down. Holt's stirring trouble, Jack said, laying it out. He wants us to back down. We won't. Sarah crossed her arms. He's been after this land forever. Thinks it's better as strip malls. Then we show him he's wrong, Lucy said. The festival's our answer. Pack this place, prove it's untouchable. Ellie piped up. I can get my friends to post about it online. Holt hates X, says it's all noise. Let's make it louder. Jack grinned. Do it, all of you. Double down. This is our home. Nobody takes it. Emma's then fest on clear and warm, the Commons alive with sound and color. By noon, thousands poured in. Families, teens, old folks with picnic blankets. The cedar stage gleamed, hosting a folk band whose harmonies floated over the crowd. Food trucks lined the paths, dishing out tacos and maple ice cream. Kids ran through Ellie's showcase, their projects solar models, painted rocks, poems drawn gas. Jack moved through it all, shaking hands, thanking volunteers. Lucy caught him near the fountain, her clipboard finally down. Look at this, she said, gesturing to the sea of people. You did this, Jack. We did, he corrected, but her words hit deep. The restlessness was still there, but it felt different now. Like a call to keep growing. Marion found him later, her smile sly. Holt showed up, took one look at the crowd and left. Sponsors are in, more than we need. Jack exhaled, relief loosening his shoulders. You're a miracle, Marion. Nah, she said. This place is... As dusk fell, the storyteller took the stage, her voice weaving Frank's life, his grit, his love, his fight for what mattered. The crowd hushed, kids leaning against parents, lanterns glowing along the paths. Jack stood at the back, Ellie beside him. When the story turned to the Commons, she whispered, "This is forever, right?" Jack looked at her, then at the garden stretching into the dark. "Yeah," he said, "it is." That night, after the crowds left and the Commons lay quiet, Jack walked to the history walk. Frank's stone glowed under the moon. Builder of futures. He sat beside it, the air cool, the stars sharp. The festival had saved the programs, maybe the Commons itself, but it was more than that. It was proof of Frank's trust, of Jack's strength, of a community that chose joy over greed. He pulled a notebook from his pocket, one of Frank's, with a blank page at the back. Jack wrote, "Keep building. For Dad. For them. For me." The restlessness wasn't gone, but it had a shape now, a hunger to do more, to make the Commons a beacon beyond Vermont. A rustle broke his thoughts. Ellie appeared, holding a lantern, her sneakers soft on the path. "Forgot my jacket," she said, then paused. "You okay?" Jack smiled, tucking the notebook away. "Better than okay, you?" She grinned, fierce and bright, ready for whatever's next. They walked back together, the Commons stretching around them, alive with possibility. Frank's voice echoed in Jack's mind. It's about showing up. He would for the Commons, for Ellie, for the future blooming in the soil. The horizon was wide and Jack was ready to meet it.